tired and you ain't sleeping well, uninspired, likely man as hell. But wherever you are, I hope the high road leads you home again.
If there is a moment that hit with more timely catharsis than Jason Isbell roaring that "last year was a son of a bitch" on this track, I don't know what was. And while all the Nashville sound was wonderful for so many different reasons, and we'll get to more of that in a few minutes, Hope the High Road is probably the most straightforward anthem that he and the 400 unit gave us, and I love it all the same. And yet, like Jason Isbell always does, it's colored with phenomenal impressionistic detail. He himself is strained to the point of exhaustion. He's seen his performer archetype as the sensitive, introspective, white male singer-songwriter in country lose more of its relevance, and you know what? He's fine with it going up in flames, as he knows the future will be better, and he knows that in facing all the hatred and mistrust, he's gonna take the high road confident that there cannot be more of them than he and everyone else can handle. Again, there was a lot of songs full of some righteous anger this year, and we'll be getting to a bunch more of them, but this certainly, definitely a standout. Killer song, absolutely loved it.
I love Portugal, I love Portugal, oh, I love Portugal, I love Portugal, I love Portugal, oh, I love Portugal.
This song falls in such a weird place for me, and yet it's one that I would be wrong not to acknowledge how much it means. It's easily one of the softest and most melodic songs that Mark Kozlik has ever written for Sun Kil Moon, but it stops midway through for a glitchy breakdown showing the cancellation of a European tour stop for justifiable reasons. And even while enjoying that placid European vibe full of charcuterie boards and wine, things keep going amiss across the water in North America, with the trail police shootings and Mark Kozlik's simmering fury at a lack of sane gun control. And even in Portugal, he finds out that shoe store he wanted to visit, it was closed. It pissed him off. And yet, after all of that, he's still found a moment of real peace, and goddamn it, he's gonna go back and find that shoe store when it opens up again when he's touring back in Portugal. And for someone who took a trip to Portugal last year, someone you probably saw with a close friend and then later rekindled the relationship with that friend after months apart this year, it's hard to feel like a song like this didn't help keep some of those good memories alive for the both of us. And to me, you know what? That's worthy of a spot on this list.
It's all gonna be magnificent, she says. It's all gonna be magnificent.
So remember when I said that the war on drugs likely won over even the naysayers the strangest thing? That goes even further for Magnificent, she says, arguably one of the best singles that Elbow has released in their career of over 15 years. So much so they actually had some chart success with this song. And yeah, there's a reason that this song, it easily lives up to its title. The thrumming balance between the tight guitar and the bass melodies against the gleaming keys that switches up into the strings on the pre-chorus against Guy Garvey's smooth but commanding delivery, all is the message to hope to an infant child that might be his own, who sees the world with unchecked innocence, even against a deeper cynicism that comes with age and reality. Again, it's a song like this, it is hope against hope. All big dreams and wistful eyes on the horizon, and maybe even sparking something long dormant for those who are watching. It's a beautiful, potent little tune, and even if I was looking for something a little bit more striking, well...
They say you're a little much for me. You're a liability. You're a little much for me. So they pull back, make other plans. I understand, I'm a liability.
It genuinely breaks my heart that Lorde did not get more success in 2017, and not just for a song like this. A piano ballad that probably would have been an easy sell if promoted properly, until, of course, people realize it's about how she sees both lovers and the world at large who don't know how to handle her intensity and presence, which is so much bigger. And what's so achingly sad is that not only is she right, especially when it comes to the mainstream, she's also accepting it and the loneliness that comes with it. And for someone so young to have reconciled that with so much maturity is genuinely heartbreaking. Maturity that came way too fast for her. You almost wish she had a little bit more of that youthful naivete. But this is one of those songs that resonate as a a little too personal for me to go further on it. Suffice to say that I get you, Lorde. I definitely agree. We deserve better. People don't give temples the damn credit they deserve, and Mystery of Pop is all the damn reason in the world why. One of the most instantly catchy melodies that you will hear all of 2017 against those scuzzy bass and guitar lines that kicks into the sort of stomping progression where the lyrics, they almost don't even matter. But what's truly potent about the song is that it's all about making pop music, sifting through the greats like David Bowie, finding those fragments of genius, and trying to build that grand unifying force themselves to live up to that legacy. And what's thrilling about the song is how close they come to realizing that grand dream, which is the whole appeal of a song like this, that creative process. Today, this is easily Temples' best ever song, and considering it came on a record that was a grand stylistic shift and experiment in its own right that succeeded, it will be fascinating to see where they choose to go next. But in the meantime, this rules.
You return, girls flock to see how you fail to age between lives.
So like with Minefield of Memory, it's tough for me to describe why I quite love this song as much as I do. If anything, it's even harder because it's so short. Some of the foundation points, they remain the same. Emily Haines' beautiful vocals, which swell up wonderfully on the pre-chorus against the subtle keyboards and that beat. But what I think really clicks for me the most for her is the content. The feeling of encountering an ex where you're both aware of exactly what went wrong in your relationship and yet why you love them regardless. And yet when you see them in the heights of all their glamour, it's hard not to get swept up in those memories once again. Think Adele and When We Were Young. But then you have to pull back for that Irish exit where nobody's gonna see you leave. And you know what? Deep down, you know it's better that way. In terms of capturing that complicated emotional maturity, coming that gravitas after reconciling the end of a relationship, Emily Haines paints such a wonderful portrait with so few words. Truly is spellbinding.
The world forgot about Gene Loves Jezebel. Yeah, the world forgot about Gene Loves Jezebel.
I'm not gonna lie, every time I went through this list and hit Abandoned Flesh, I thought it was a mistake putting it here, let alone this high. But then I would re-listen to it once, then twice, then 3 more times and be convinced that otherwise, because like with the rest of Goths, this song works by playing to that low-key vibe. It's basically a historical snapshot of a mostly forgotten goth band played with a subtle jazzy flair, but that works because with the rest of the album, it hits the moment that despite big dreams within the subculture of being popular and famous, owning that artistic ideal, the majority of us will have to wake up, wipe off the eyeliner, and actually get a job. And yet it's framed mostly sympathetically. A band that might not be entirely remembered even by most goths, but still worthy of attention, even if most have just forgotten. It's clever, genuinely mature, and this sort of elegant album closer that absolutely sticks the landing. Fantastic little tune. Really love it. No, it's not Dirty Love. What could be? But this was the Kesha song that stuck with me most in 2017 because it is everything I love about her approach to punk and glam that just connects. The mix is ragged, intense, and raw, full of the gender-bending profanity that has always been Kesha's hallmark in her deep cuts, cranked up to 11 with the raw exuberance and the welcome stabilizing grooves of Eagles of Death Metal, who provide a solid grounding presence that really is quite needed. This is Kesha's giant middle finger to everybody and everyone who dare dismiss her, delivered with the precisely tuned yet explosively raw joy. All sorts of flash but worthy of it all. Just a shame that Kesha hasn't just shipped this to rock radio to flush out whatever turd from Theory of a Dead Man is wallowing on top. Because really, this is a fireball that the rock charts could really use.
We've been here before. It's best not to wander far. 'Cause we've been here before. And we couldn't find a way out. When we were here the first time,
was the sleeper song of the year for me. I might have liked Whiteout Conditions and loved the title track, but We've Been Here Before is the sort of song that rang as so much bigger. The prescient warning moment, like before when all the pleasantries were disposed and the band breaks the fourth wall. Part of the we is directed at the band, an acknowledgement that they can't just hide within artistic abstraction and distance from the tumult of the real world, but it's also hard not to feel like these proud Canadians are also turning to us and saying, you see what's going on south of the border? That can happen to us. It was only by some fluke that we got out of it the last time. And sure, the message got most of the way there for me, but what truly won me over was the brilliant vocal arrangement on that hook, the splashes of guitar after it, and how subtly things seem to break down, implying around the edges of melody and composition, implying that same sense of creeping desperation that, you know what, we actually get the point. And I can only hope by the end of 2017 we Canadians actually did get it, especially when the delivery mechanism is this awe-inspiring.
Well, take your pay and stay out the way. Be something. Do your best, but fuck the rest. Be something.
And speaking of awe-inspiring songs, I'm not sure there was a vocal performance as emotionally resonant, mature, and powerful as there was from Alynda Segarra on Pelante. So much so that most of the reverb and echo wasn't even needed for the first half of the song, relying on sheer charisma and intensity to carry her anthem for the downtrodden, effortlessly shifting to Spanish when necessary to give names to the nameless and speak truth to power. Even the instrumental shifts show that same balance between intensity and aching exhaustion. From the pianos to the bass-touched Latin rhythms to the spoken word segment that comes out of nowhere to the sort of outro that can't help but stir the spirit and soul. And in a year where Latin music was more popular than it's been in over a decade in North America, I'd be loath not to include the very best that they have to offer, because this song, undeniable. Okay, look, Creeper's debut album, Eternity in Your Arms, has already won a considerable amount of critical acclaim, and we'll possibly get even more when I put up my list of the best albums of 2017, never know. But if we're looking for what really put them on the map and broke them through, it was Black Rain, let's be honest. The interweaving male and female vocals, the gothic pomp that opened up the song, and infused the melodrama with the best sort of stylistic bombast while sticking to a tried and true formula, and one of the best goddamn hooks of the year. It's only a matter of time before Creeper's brand of pop punk gives the dormant genre another shot of life in the mainstream, and I would love to see this crossover. Maybe give it one more album, especially if they get the right sort of promotional push, similar to how 21 Pilots did a couple of years ago. Yeah, Creeper is gonna be goddamn huge, and Black Rain, the best possible introduction.
Got a second chance, I'm gonna make it count. Make my way out west, maybe head down south. Live a life of a pardoned man, believing in things I don't understand.
So I'll be honest and say, I didn't quite love Jason Eady's self-titled release as much as Daylight and Dark, which I think to this day remains his best album. But you might as well chalk up Barabbas as yet another staple in his catalog of songs that could well be deemed as country classics in the making. And it's a sort of premise that honestly makes me baffled that we've never heard it in country before, because it sounds like it should have always been there from the beginning. A story of the outlaw set free by the sacrifice of another man that our protagonist neither quite knows or really quite understands. And Jason Eady's restrained balance of shock, relief, and a sense that that tragedy meant so much more than was known directly. It is a masterfully written song. It's nearly on par with the title track of Daylight and Dark, and yet another reason why Jason Eady is one of the best damn names in indie Texas country. Bar none.
No way, we never shall decay. We won't last 5 fucking minutes with a body like mine and a mind like mine. I guess this is as far as she goes. I guess this is as far as we go.
It always unsettles me a bit how much I like this song because, again, I'm not a fan at all of hardcore punk. Post-punk, sure, but with the echoing thrum of the bass and the manic guitar work, sure, it was more than a little bit of influence, but the vocals are guttural and foul, and that's not even getting into the content, which is basically Lil Uzi Vert's EXO tour life played with appropriately nihilistic framing and writing that highlights the craven ugliness of it all, as well as the sex that is about the furthest thing from sexy. And yet, I get it. In a perverse way, it clicks. It gets the framing and the intensity saying at the lowest possible point. You're getting any vestige of pleasure out of it is an utterly nightmarish song. And when you pair it with a disturbingly catchy melody and a killer groove, yeah, this crushes. And it scares me that I like it this much.
I know you must hold secrets. Such a long way from home. You're lost at least to live real. Someday you'll be where you should go.
So I've said multiple times that I think Hot Thoughts was the change of pace that made so many longtime casual fans snap awake and realize how damn great Spoon has always been. But Whisper I'll Listen to Hear It was something different entirely. A regretful crescendo built over a song that piles in more windswept layers of groove, be they in the synths or the bass or that seething guitar line. And yet, even beyond all that, there's something deeply haunting about this song. The lost potential of that target that's seen so many dreams just burn away. With this moment potentially being the dark shot of life given for all of the wrong reasons. This sort of song where the groove is so damn tight you almost think that it's threadbare, going to snap off at the ends at any second. And yet it holds, up until an abrupt ending and a record that will serve to flip all that seductive energy on its head. And yet, that illusion, it was incredible, at least while it lasted.
Strength we build between us, and all the time it takes to build the trust right back up. Isn't worth a single drop of glass of anything, and I don't pour anything.
Okay, I can't say much about why I adore this song without revealing way too much about my personal life, so let me just say this. In a year where there were no shortage of songs exploring depression and trauma and turbulent emotions and substance abuse, a song that rips off the band-aid to show someone desperately trying to make the conscious choice to be happy and preserve what they have, yeah, plain spoken, painfully direct, taking a melody from the Zac Brown band and making it into so much more. It's one of the best things that Def Havana have ever released, and not just for that reason is it this high on my list. Yeah, it's that great.
Cause on the aisle, come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. Oh, I wish I could get my things and just let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it.
Okay, why in the nine hells was this not a hit? Seriously, I want to know, because apparently this had shockingly low radio call-out scores in 2017 until Look What You Made Me Do came around, and I have no idea why. Well, okay, I got some idea. The melodic shift midway through into that huge hook with the roaring guitars and much faster pianos, the fact that Lorde doesn't display melancholy at this breakup so much as channeling her natural intensity into pure fury, having to wait for her lingering emotions to clear so she can move the hell on. It's basically a Beyonce-style breakup anthem from a pop star known for quiet restraint and sending her aura of untouchable cool up in flames. And really, as Lorde herself mentions, that inferno can be hard for a more guarded mainstream public to handle. She understands that. But for those of us who can weather the flames, this was the best pop song that ruled my year. Marrying Jack Antonoff's impressive knack for bombast with Lorde letting her intensity blaze forth. And really, for those who got on board, we were all the better for it. Unless you follow this channel in depth, the majority of you have no idea who Eric Taxxon is. And really, I wouldn't expect you to. As an obscure Bandcamp electronic producer who put out a good 5 projects at least a year, they tend to be hard to find, a little bit tough to get into. I say all this with the following statement. Real Boy is the best song the Postal Service never made, and arguably better than anything that they actually did make too. A stunningly intimate portrait of online queer relationships with one of the best melodic progressions of 2017, and framing that reflects the more homespun bedroom electronica that became instantly beloved when it's discovered for its frank but very emotive humanity. The poetry, it's simple but amazingly effective. The synth tones, they are soothing as any textured chiptune, and Eric Taxxon's performance, it is among his best, his most subtle. Folks, when Pitchfork or a major label will discover this guy in 5 or so years, you're gonna want to be ahead of the curve. Because of every single record and song that I put on this list, this will probably be the track that will get the least critical acclaim by everybody else, and yet it probably deserves it the most. Check out Eric Taxxon and his album Paul. It's so worth it.
So Pariah, you'll begin again. Take comfort from me, and now I'll take comfort from you.
I've come to realize that a lot of people were really on the fence about Steven Wilson's record To the Bone, and it's embracing the pop structures that have always been one of the reasons why he's had the crossover success that he has. But you know what? I haven't been on the fence. I reviewed his record while on vacation, and yet Pariah resonated with me so much more even beyond that time. The beautiful liquid cascades against the synthesizers and the acoustic guitar, Steven Wilson's ability to sell that abject exhaustion with the modern world, and Ninet Tayeb, her counterbalance, that husky rawness that pays off in the second chorus with stunning effect with a gargantuan tremolo solo that was absolutely incredible. This is progressive pop rock that knows both restraint and when to go huge, and ranks alongside Hand Cannot Erase as one of Steven Wilson's best ever songs. Proof that, despite his characteristic studied melancholy, he's actually at his best when bringing a sense of real hope.
Chicago or Benghazi, a high rise without no lobby. Run up stairwells like Rocky, cause these elevators so sloppy. Stop me now if I'm lying, but I don't need your buy-in. Heard 100 sirens, attention's undivided. I was in there, she lived there, she raised a few of her kids there. No lobby, no swimming pool, no need and buy, no swimwear.
You know, I get why people didn't like this song. Hell, I'm not even sure it's a song that I actually like so much as the raw, gaping horror is keeping me dislodged in my top 10. Because my hand's building, it's a risk, both for Open Mike Eagle and the usage of some of the most outwardly noisy and abrasive production to date, but also to end the album like this, because it's not a clean ending. It's one verse where he sounds increasingly small amidst the world that is crumbling around him. It's the sound of them tearing his body down. Wide-eyed horror as the bars paint the picture of a world that's torn down around him and replaced with nothing, which ruined the lives of so many families that are now scattered. And his choice to leave it all so abortive reflects the nature of that trauma. There was no clear answer. There was never enough time to reconcile any of it. Just the dispassionate displacement of a home. A psychic wound that even he can't quite parse, just trying to recreate here. It's not the safe way to end a record like Brick Body Kids Still Daydream, but truthfully, it's the only way that you could realistically do it. And thus, in a world where so many artists would provide some form of escape for their audience, Open Mike Eagle, he delivered truth, if only to show a fragment of what it really, truly felt. Yeah, if there was a year for this song to have profound resonance, it was 2017. And yet, for as much as Algiers dove into the pitch black, fiercely conscious, utterly explosive material that informed the underside of power, which targeted divisions in class, race, and political affiliation with militaristic precision and rage, they gave us an anthem. It's arguably one of the most upbeat songs they have ever released. It strips away those divisions of disenfranchisement and gives them a fierce rallying cry. Franklin James Fisher has seen the underside of those fragile systems that keep them down. He's been through all the gauntlet and he has not been broken. And he sees that change coming from on high. Playing up the noisy fuzz flooding through most of the song and the touches of northern soul, he leaps aboard those spikes of guitar and rides all that gospel swell to the heights of a tremendous hook. That's where we get the shimmering touches of keys on the bridge that hold the mark even as the mix descends deep into cacophony before coming out all the stronger. If you were not listening to Algiers in 2017, look, you were missing out a fire that was sorely missed. And that's all the time in the world I needed to get on board right now. Check this out, you're missing out.
No one wanted more than mouths to feed and bills to pay. Maybe the Cumberland Gap just swallows you whole. Maybe the Cumberland Gap just swallows you whole.
You know, if there was a theme about the Nashville sound, it was about confronting all the maturing and moving on that Jason Isbell thought he handled on Southeastern and Something More Than Free, and then throwing him back into the pit. His struggles, internal or external, they can't just be left behind by that closed door of time, and Cumberland Gap is the starkest possible example. An alcohol-infused nightmare of a song for him that is filled with imagery of getting swallowed, falling backwards, searching for a reason that's just not coming if there ever was one against the driving groove, accenting by some of the most noisy production that Jason Isbell and Dave Cobb have ever used in their careers, with real groove cobbling out of the howling feedback of it all. And what makes up all the thrill and the terror of a song like this is that it's Jason Isbell, coming off records where you thought his sobriety was guaranteed, stability was found, and if even he's losing it, how can anybody hold on? And when you couple it with a hook that is this simple, and yet so unbelievably potent all the same, especially coming off of all those minor progressions coming in on the verses and the pre-chorus, it's hard not to feel a kinship in that lurching instability of a song like this, and that really made it resonate all the harder as one of the best of this year.
Come hold still at the Stone Hotel. Free meals on the counter bill. Takes my calls at the Stone Hotel. My people's aching for now, but I got someone waiting on me.
You know, I may have said that Eric Taxxon was the least known artist on this list, but if you were looking for a close second who's worthy of just as much attention, look no further than Jamie Wyatt with her best song to date, Stone Hotel. And aside from being a song about that should rightly get a spot if there was any another season of Orange is the New Black, it's a song that actually takes some of the story that saw her thrown in prison to begin with in real life and gives it one of the best hooks that country had to offer in 2017. Between the wonderfully organic groove of the fiddles, the saloon piano, the pedal steel, the organ, the acoustic guitar, all building off into a stomping pre-chorus and the monster of a hook, Jamie Wyatt managed to cram the song full of so many details of the desperate poverty that drove her to steal, getting thoroughly screwed by the legal system, and then winding up in jail, where despite the gross indignity of it all, she's got someone waiting for her outside and needs something to buoy a lot of her spirits. And yet again, this song, for as impatient and scathing as it is toward a system that thoroughly screwed her over, there's some hope there, and it's a wonder to behold. A lot like this song, I truly do adore it, and it really had a place for me in 2017.
But I guess I'd say I'll see you soon. I see you soon. But the truth is that I see you now. I see you now. Still talk to you like you're around. Like you're around.
This was the hip-hop song to beat in 2017 right from the very beginning, and nothing did. Just like Crown before it, this is Run the Jewels at their most emotive, complex, and powerful, with LP joining Aesop Rock in its tribute to Camus Tao, where he wrestles with the guilt of wishing that his friend might perish quicker to spare him all that suffering, and Killer Mike telling the story of a friend killed for his chain, and how losing a provider for that family led to a fierce, bleak downward spiral, and yet he speaks to that killer, and he says that he hopes that that was enough to pull himself out of poverty so his own mother will not know that same pain of losing a child, punctuated by the thunderclaps at the end of that biblical portent of that veiled warning that came with it. Go with the stunning horn accompaniment from Kamasi Washington on the hook that really came out of nowhere, following all those wiry warbles of grimy synth, the glimmer of sleigh bells, and our rappers at their most emotionally expressive. It leads to a hook that can pay off the catharsis, acknowledging that those memories, they will never be forgotten because they've always been there. For me, easily the best hip-hop song of the year, one of Run the Jewels is absolute best, and all the more evidence that they are a force to be reckoned with going forward, even at their most vulnerable. And you know what? On that subject,
Knowing that this can't go on forever, likely one of us will have to spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 years together, but one day I'll be gone. One day you'll be gone.
if you've been in indie country circles, you've already heard the critical acclaim for this song. Now, Jason Isbell has once again added to his canon of classic songs, a song that rivals Elephant for sheer emotional power. And you've also probably heard a bunch of the naysayers, that its usage of vampires as a metaphor is the sort of thing most country artists would never do. Hell, Dave Cobb even said, "Have you been reading Twilight, Jason Isbell?" And it's the sort of thing that, along with all the ghostly atmosphere, is that there are a few too many veneers that truly pull somebody into that story, at least for a lot of audiences. Now for me, never was an issue. Hell, given where I hung out most of 2017, this almost feels apropos. And none of it takes away from Jason Isbell's acknowledgement of his partner's mortality, with a faded wish that they could just have so much more time and flaunt those rules of death and undeath, play with gothic trappings of the imagery, but a realistic emotional core that transcends all of that, capturing the loneliness, the heartbreak, and all that grief that is to come, against a simple but amazingly effective acoustic melody, Amanda Shires' perfect backing vocals, and a mix that gives it just enough space to show it all and capture that emotional expanse. It's one of the most tragic and really romantic songs I've heard all year. It's one of Jason Isbell's absolute best. It's the best country song of 2017, damn near the best song of this year, and yet...
No one knows where the back gate closed. The river goes where the water flows. But no one knows where the back gate closed.
I could write an essay on this song alone. The first time I heard it, I knew it was going to make this list, and every subsequent listen confirmed its position at the very top. For the past 4 months, this was my song of 2017, hands down, and that hasn't changed. One of the best tracks the Mountain Goats have ever written. It is unlike anything that they have ever made before. No guitar, all piano and thrumming bass and symphonic vocals calling to mind Sisters of Mercy circa Floodland, and with writing and delivery that was arguably more potent than that goth powerhouse ever was. Because this song isn't just a goth anthem, although it certainly is one. It's about the slow, inexorable collapse of goth culture as the vestige of the outcast damned is crumbling around them, half through the uncaring mainstream eye and half through the long, slow decay of time. And what's all the more potent is the main conceit that nobody truly knows the cause of that ending. Nobody knows the breaking point of the legends. You might be able to trace the roots of birth, but you can't find the point of death. But it's always there. It's always omnipresent. It's the one barrier that goth claims to idolize, but always hesitates to truly embrace to go there. Nothing harder to go through with than a vanishing act. And yet, as the scene decays, with all the iconography all the more pronounced as John Darnielle's vocals get all the more intense and guttural and nasal, all full of biblical portent and apocalyptic prophecy, only for the song to hit that climax point and then fade into ambient quiet. Moments of respite and dark inclusion on the bridge, and the emptiness that would follow it. And in a year where the passage of time felt all the more pronounced, as old institutions were torn down, both good and ill, and I found myself in one such gothic establishment resurrected from abandoned decay entirely too many times, this was the soundtrack of my year, and it is my favorite song of 2017. Let's only hope that coming out of this night, that 2018 can bring a new dawn.